Google Maps allows us to virtually travel around the world, experiencing new places and feeling cool emotions. But not always on Google Maps you can only see streets and landscape. Sometimes you can find something mysterious, mystical, and even spooky there. This is Infinity, and in this episode I'll show you Google Maps images that no one was supposed to see. Let's go! Last year, an amateur explorer of Google Maps found a curious place which immediately attracted the attention of users. On the satellite images taken in the area of Death Valley in the United States, an obscure object of black color with an acidic green hue was found. Its length is about 135 meters, and right next to it is a hollow, which was immediately called a UFO landing spot. 14 kilometers away, a crashed plane lies. What is it? A real UFO that crashed in the desert and was guarded by the military? A flooded quarry? Or something else? Seems to me we shouldn't rule out the UFO version because there are other similar Google Maps images. For example, a few years ago, a user looking at a map of a Romanian forest noticed a silver-colored flying saucer that was half covered by tree branches. Thanks to the lighting and shadows, one could clearly see the outline of an alien ship with round portholes. Do Google Maps really capture real UFOs at times? I don't know about the Death Valley object, but the Romanian UFO turned out to be an ordinary abandoned water pump. One object that turns out to be perfectly normal doesn't mean that UFOs and aliens are not 100% real. The following Google Maps image gives food for thought. It shows a pyramid located in Antarctica. You can clearly see the sides of the structure and its facets. The resemblance to the notorious Egyptian pyramids is obvious, but what is this really? Most skeptical scientists argue that it's not some kind of structure at all, but only part of a mountain range, an ordinary mountain that's taken such a non-standard shape due to strong winds. Theorists and UFOologists don't agree with them. They believe that the mountain couldn't take such a perfect pyramidal shape, and they're sure this is a real pyramid built by aliens. It's impossible to verify it yet. The pyramid is located in a remote region of Antarctica where no man has yet set foot. Loch Ness Monster. While some users are discussing aliens, others believe that thanks to Google Maps, the mystery of the Loch Ness Monster has finally been solved. That's the opinion of Lisa Stout, a U.S. resident who discovered the famous monster on Google Maps about 4 years ago. The woman said she began looking for the monster after she was fired from her job. She noted that she purposely looked at maps for several hours a day and eventually fortune smiled upon her, and she noticed a strange silhouette, which looks like the silhouette of the monster from the Scottish Lake. In the published photo, you can see a dark silhouette protruding several meters out of the water. This is roughly how Nessie is portrayed by artists, and this is how it looks in various unconfirmed pictures. Strange symbol. Let's take our mind off aliens and legendary creatures and move to Uruguay, where there's a very strange and mysterious symbol found. It was found with the help of Google Maps near the city of Florida. Yeah, it turns out that's not just a state in America. The symbol clearly stands out from the neighboring landings. It looks like some kind of trident, which is quite large in size. Although it is in fact a landmark in Uruguay and Florida, the locals still don't know what it is. According to one version, these trees were planted in this form by farmers, and it happened about 60 years ago. According to another version, it's a ritual reference to the vessel containing the elixir of eternal life. Unfortunately, it's not known for certain what it actually is. What do you think this Uruguayan tree object is? Share your thoughts in the comments. And stay tuned to see even more interesting and unusual Google Maps images that'll surprise you. Patterns. If we move from Uruguay to neighboring Argentina and look at the fields in the province of Rio Negro, at some point we might come across a picture like this. It looks strange to say the least. We see some mysterious patterns scattered on the ground, but what are they? Could they be the work of aliens who fired their guns at the earth in ancient times? Or maybe it's a message left by an unknown civilization. In fact, everything's simple. It's an oil field. Yes, oil is produced not only in Russia, Saudi Arabia, Canada, and Iran, but also in Argentina. In general, gas and oil are the most important of the fuel and energy resources of this country, so similar fields can be seen in other provinces of Argentina. Here we see a similar picture. Google Maps has captured some strange patterns in the desert. From the outside, it may seem like an unknown settlement with round-shaped houses or another mystery. In fact, it's simpler than that. But that doesn't make the picture any less creepy. This is a test site in Nevada. The dots you see are craters from nuclear explosions. The test site is only 105 kilometers from Las Vegas and has been in operation since 1951. More than 900 nuclear explosions have been carried out here since the ban. The bombs were detonated on the surface of the range and underground. The result is such a post-apocalyptic landscape. The test site and the oil field are certainly interesting, but what about the crime scene? You can find that on Google Maps too. If we look at the pond of the city of Almere in the Netherlands, we can see an eerie picture: trees, landscape, and a pier with traces of blood on it. You can see that someone is dragging a body to the pond to hide it. It looks scary. Did Google Maps really capture the real massacre? Fortunately, it's not, though it's very easy to confuse it with a murder. In fact, the picture is of a retriever who was out for a walk with his owner. The dog simply jumped into the water and then ran to its owner, who was standing on the wooden pier. The dog left a wet trail behind it, which internet users mistook for a blood trail. Few people know, but Google Maps works not only on Earth. With the help of Google Maps, you can even travel around Mars. This feature was added a few years ago. In general, you can visit several planets and satellites at once, but we're interested in Mars because there you can see this. Some mysterious buildings are on the surface of the red planet. Could it be that the colonization of Mars has already begun, but we're not being told anything about it? Or is this a residential complex of Martians who do exist? Actually, it's a very cool Easter egg. You can get to this base and see that these structures are a Google office. Who knows, maybe in a couple of decades, such an office will be on Mars in reality. Giant in the desert. Scrolling through Google Maps images in South America, you might come across a huge image of a giant. It's expected. It'll surprise or even scare you, since you won't expect to see something like this in some faraway desert. What is it? This is a large anthropomorphic geoglyph, which is called the Atacama Giant. Its length is 86 meters, so there's no problem to see it even from a satellite. In fact, it can be seen in full only from a satellite or a bird's-eye view. What's surprising is that the giant is not made by modern people, but by the Aborigines who lived here about 3,000 years ago. Who needed to create such a huge geoglyph? And for what purpose was it created? Any guesses? Pentagram. If you scroll through Google Maps images in the area of the town of Lysychovsk, Kazakhstan, you can see a giant pentagram. It's unexpected and even creepy to stumble upon it, because the pentagram is often associated with the devil. It seems that occult rites, initiations, and sacrifices are held in this place. Some people even believe that there are vampires in this area, but of course that's not true. It turns out that the pentagram is a children's summer camp. The explanation's simple. The trees were planted in the shape of a star as a symbol of the Soviet Union. That is, it's not a pentagram, but exactly a star. You just have to look at the photo from a different angle. By the way, the summer camp never opened, but the park became world famous because of the satellite images. What could be scarier than a pentagram in northern Kazakhstan? What about an entire village with lifeless inhabitants? If we go to the Japanese island of Shikoku and look into the village of Nagoro, we can see just such a picture. Hundreds of dolls are scattered and spread out everywhere, some sitting at the bus stop, some working in the fields, some just hiding. Either way, the setting is scary. It looks like a scene from a horror movie, but it's totally a real place. When you learn the truth about this village, it begins to look less creepy. The fact is that Nagoro used to be quite a large village with hundreds of people living there at the time. The village was almost completely depopulated when young people began to leave it en masse in the last century. At the beginning of the 21st century, a woman named Sukumi Ayano returned to the village. She didn't want to see the nearly deserted village, so she decided to make one life-size doll for each of the villagers who had left. And that's how Nagoro became the doll village. Unusual, but eerie. That's all, guys. What's the strangest thing you personally have found on Google Maps? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you later.